Hello everyone, and welcome to Uglesoft's second episode in the Python Keystrokes and Hotkeys tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to clean up our keystroke program just a little bit, set up some additional hotkeys that can open different applications on our machine and navigate through multiple Chrome tabs, play some music for us, and increase the quality of the output that we actually send to the terminal so that it's much more finalized and just generally polishing things up. Before we start writing any of the code, I'm going to show you guys what the function is supposed to do in the end. I have a completed version on my hotkey program that I like to keep in the background all the time. So I'm just going to execute that, give you a good overview of what we're supposed to be doing here. It can be easy to get lost in all the different key presses, so big picture helps a lot for me. So I'm going to open up my little alice.py, that's the name of my personal assistant that I've created. And I'm going to execute the Google Workspace function. I'm going to press the 0, the G, and the W keys, and then I'm going to let the program take care of the rest. I will be using the Win Shift arrow keys to bring it into the right monitor. I have 4 monitors at the moment, so I'll have to bring it into the screen, but otherwise the function is going to be executing everything else that you see happening on the screen. So 0GW, Workspace activated. Alright, so it brought it up over here. I moved it into the center screen, but it took us to the Lo-Fi Loft playlist on music.youtube.com. Press the tab button, press enter. So now we've got some music going. It's going to open up some new tabs for Google Drive, Google Calendar, and lastly, Gmail. So you can see over here, I don't know if you saw this last line up here, but it says Google Workspace completed. It's rather loud, so let's turn that off. So the function is going to give a print message when we start, give a print message when we've completed saying what it is, and it's going to do all this different stuff. It pulls up Chrome, it presses the Windows key, and then opens Chrome, so you don't have to have Chrome open or anything. It can be, if this shortcut program is the only thing running, it'll still set this up properly every time. So let's exit out of all of this and get to the actual program. So we can start adding that Google Workspace function and showing you how to press the different keys and what kind of pauses you're going to need depending on what you're trying to do. The first thing that we're going to want to do is create a function for it. I don't like to rewrite code a bunch of times if I don't have to. It's really good for being able to just write code on the spot, but it's not the most efficient way to do things when you have access to the code. So I like to go ahead and just copy it, make the changes that I need. So Google Workspace, that's what we're going to call this function. And then we're going to do, we're going to restructure this little statement function. And let's just do some angle brackets because those look cool. Workspace called. And let's modify this function Google Workspace completed. So instead of releasing the E and the F key, we're going to do the Google for G, G for Google, and then W for Workspace. And then we press backspace 3 times, time sleep 1/10 of a second. Now, we don't want to print out a bunch of strings to the keyboard. We don't want to send text to whatever application's in the foreground. We want to press the Windows key to pull up this little search bar here, because this will search through the apps on our machine. Now this might not work if you're not on a Windows machine, but usually there is a key that you can set up to search the applications on your machine, and that's the key that you want to press. So what we need to do here is, let's get some space in here, c.press, and then we're going to use key. Now it's not called Windows key on a Windows machine, it's called CMD, command, and then L, command L. So that's just, I don't know why it's called that, but that's what the Windows key is called on a Windows machine in terms of keyboard naming conventions. So we're going to press and release. Now because this isn't the fastest thing in the world, it has to look through all the applications on our machine. We want to give it a good delay before we start sending text into this box right here. So we're going to do time sleep. We're just going to do 1 second. Anytime I do less than a second, I've run into some issues. Usually I go down to like a half a second or something, but time sleep 1 second, going to be more than enough, I think, for most machines. If yours is really slow, you might have to bump it up, but I like to be on the safe side. I can't stand it when my functions don't execute properly because I was trying to make them happen too fast. It's like it defeats the point. But after the time sleep, then we're going to use C type. We're going to type out the application that we're looking for. So let's just do Chrome. I love Google Chrome. It's a great browser. I think it's fantastic and more than adequate for all of my needs and purposes and all of that. Now that we've typed out Chrome, we want to give it some time, because if we do this, Google Chrome doesn't load up instantly. It takes, 0.2 of a second or something, but that's still a delay. So we want to add a delay in here between putting the text in and pressing the Enter key. So let's go ahead and copy that, time sleep 1, and then we need to do press and release again, but instead of Command L, we're going to do the Enter key. So this is going to press the Windows key, wait a second, type in Chrome in the search bar here, because that's what gets pulled to the foreground when we press the Windows key, and then it's going to press the Enter key, which should pull up Google Chrome, because it's supposed to be the first thing in your search results, unless you have some weird app named Chrome and you have to type in Google Chrome, because we could even do that, honestly. Let's type in Google Chrome and see if that works. There we go, Google Chrome. We're just going to punch that in instead, and I should actually add that to my other hotkey program to make sure that I don't accidentally pull up a program that isn't what I'm looking for. But we need to give it another delay, because in between pressing Enter and actually loading up the program, there's going to be another delay. We'll just do another second. Should be more than enough. So this is going to go into Windows, search for Chrome, execute it, and wait. Let's test this out and see if it works properly. So we can go ahead and make sure that we don't have any other Python scripts running. We're going to go ahead and run Python file. So let's press, ooh, this isn't going to work yet. We got to kill that terminal. We may have defined this function, but we haven't added it to the list of hotkeys. So we need to go down here, and we're going to add a comma, make another one of these. We're going to change the function to Google Workspace. We got to get rid of the comma, and then we got to add GW. So 0GW. Now, if I hadn't done that, then the function would just be sitting here and it would never get called ever. So we can go ahead and rerun this. Now let's press 0GW and see what happens. Google Chrome. It pressed Enter. Now I'm going to drag this in. This is what opened up. It opened it up on the other screen because it just defaults to screen 2 for some reason on my machine. But you can see that it went into the Windows key, searched for Google Chrome, pressed Enter, and opened it up automatically. All I did was press 0GW, and then I let go. I stopped touching things. Let's close this out, and we can start adding some more things to our function to work within the Chrome application now that it's going to be open at this point in the function. When we first open Google Chrome, the URL bar is going to be highlighted, meaning that we can just start sending things to the keyboard and it'll go right in there. So we can just press, we can type out ctype, and then in here is where we're going to put the URL that we're trying to go to. So I'm just going to go to https:// and let's go to music.youtube.com. We're not going to go to any specific playlist or anything at the moment. We just want to get to the right spot. Now that's going to put the text in. We got to press the Enter key. I don't really feel like typing that out a second time, so C.press Enter, C release Enter. Now let's give it another second before we go ahead and open up a new tab. The way that we open up a new tab with a shortcut, if you don't know, is by pressing Control-T. So now we're going to have to do something we haven't done yet, which is pressing multiple keys at the same time without releasing them back to back. So we're going to have to C, press, key, and I believe Control, yes, CTRL. Now instead of releasing it right away, we need to do C, press, and then in here we're just going to press, or we're going to type out T. So we press Control and then we press T. And now we can release both of these. Instead of press, we're going to do release. Copy that, paste it there. So we're going to have a new tab open after we open music.youtube.com. Let's find another URL to paste in. So after we release T, we want to give it a delay. One more delay. So I'm going to give it another second. And then we're going to head over to, let's go to drive. What is the actual URL? Is it drive.google? Yeah, drive.google.com. That's where we're going to leave it. Press enter, release enter, time sleep 1, function completed. Let's run this one more time. We can kill this terminal and let's see what happens. Before we do that, I am going to switch the display so that Google Chrome will automatically pull up in the right display. I don't want to keep having to move it over with the Win Shift arrows because that can cause some problems. So we're going to pull this in here and run Python file. So 0GW. You can't see it on this screen, but it does still go into the Windows key and search, and you can see all of that. Alright, so Google Workspace completed. Let's see what we've got here in our Chrome tab. First it took us to music.youtube.com successfully, and then it took us to drive.google.com, and it went ahead and redirected me to my Drive account that I'm signed into for my personal Google. It's typically going to do that. A lot of these URLs will redirect. You can go and grab the specific URLs if you want, but that's going to be a decision that you can make site by site. I'm going to leave that in your hands. I'm going to go ahead and add a very specific playlist to my YouTube Music URL. So let's find something good in here. What was it? Let's just look for lo-fi. Lo-fi loft. See if we can find a good one. Here it is. This is a good playlist. Let's just go to it, see what we can find. Alright, so we're just going to copy this entire URL. It's big and long and complicated, but that's what we need. So we're going to exit out of this tab. There we go. And replace this, making sure we don't get the quotes in there. So now that would be really crazy to type out by hand, but it's going to take us to that playlist when we press enter directly. So it's not just this YouTube Music homepage. You can leave it the homepage if you want, but I like to set my music up to play automatically when I execute the function. Now, it's not going to start playing the music automatically when I execute this function. It's just going to take me to that page. So what I need to do, let's actually go back into that page so we can see what's going on here. 0GW, call the function one more time. It's going to open it up for us. I didn't restart the program yet, so it's still using the old URL, but we can paste it in. Press enter, make sure it actually takes us to the right spot. Alright, so it does. Now, when I'm here, how many times do I have to press the tab key to get to that shuffle button? It looks like it's only once. See how it's highlighted now? And if I press the enter key, it's going to go ahead and start that playlist. So one tab press and one enter press are what we're going to need to do when we get to that URL before we open that second tab. So let's code that in right now. We're going to have to just copy the time sleep and the press and release. Do that a few times. So we want to press tab instead of enter. And then we want to, well, it's actually enter, so we can leave that there. This is all going to be for this particular tab before we open up the Google Drive. So let's test it out. We're going to kill this terminal and rerun our script. Now this may not work the best since I didn't put very big delays in here, but let's just see what happens. 0GW. Alright, so you see how it highlighted that arrow key up here and then pressed enter in there somewhere? Because this page was still busy loading by the time that 1 second had passed and it pressed the tab key. So let's close this out and give it some bigger delays. So after we actually pull up the playlist, I'm going to do 8 seconds. Usually 4 is more than enough, but when I restart my machine and boot it up for the first time, sometimes it takes up to like 5 or 6 seconds for that playlist to be completely loaded in. So I'm going to give it 8 seconds to be extra safe, and then we're going to leave all the other, everything else is going to stay the same. Kill this terminal and run it one more time. All right. Google Workspace called. There we go. We've got the URL. It's just sitting here waiting. See how long that took to load? Now there's still a big gap. There, it highlighted. I didn't click that. It pressed enter automatically. Let's see. Okay, so it did start the music, but it switched tabs before the song could completely load, and then it stopped loading it because it was on a different tab. So let's give another delay after we press the enter key to let the music start. Let's give it 4 seconds. This is going to be a little bit slower of a script, but at least our function will actually be executing properly. So let's run the Python file one more time, and then we're going to try 0GW, only hotkey we have. All right. Again, it takes a good minute to load up, and that's when the browser memory is helping out too. So there we go. We gave it a good couple seconds, let the music start, and then it moves on to Google Drive. Cool. So that looks like a much better set of delays. We can trim them down if we want to keep things super, super fast and efficient, but then we do run the risk of pressing tab without the page being fully loaded or moving to a new tab before the song actually starts. So you can fiddle with those depending on how your machine works. If you've got some wicked, sick server capable machine that can just run everything in a split second, then hey, make this as fast as you want. You know, if your machine's not the best, then you might have to add much bigger delays in here. But that's going to be something you're going to have to feel out and test for yourself as you complete the rest of this program. Make small changes as you go. And you'll probably end up finding that you need to make changes later on down the line when you run it, who knows, 10 days from now, and something weird happens, and then you build an exception for that. So the beautiful thing about this is it's just a Python script, so you can go and tweak it pretty much whenever. We're in a pretty good spot right here, so we're just going to add a few more tabs and applications that you might need. Since this is a Google Workspace function, we're going to open Google Calendar and Google Mail. So let's just copy all of this, because this little chunk of code right here opens a new tab, and this one designates what we're going to be using that tab for. Oh, we'll undo that. Copy. We're going to paste this twice. We're going to add a line break before we paste it a second time. So the first one takes us to Google Drive, and then the second one we want it to take us to calendar.google.com, and the last one's going to be mail.google.com. Now, hopefully the delays are all big enough, but let's test it out, see what happens. Kill this terminal, rerun it, after we've saved our changes, of course. All right, starting up the function. We've still got that big delay here, so it's going to be up for a few seconds before we actually start the music. Pressing shuffle. We've got some music now. Opens Google Drive, opens Google Calendar, and we've opened our Google Mail. Excellent. So we've got our Google Calendar here, we've got our Google Drive and our inbox for the mail, and music is playing in the background. So that's going to be it for the Google Workspace function, as far as I can tell. We can close out of this, head on back to the actual program. Now the other thing that we need to do before we complete everything, now that the function is working properly, we still want to add some quality of life improvements to the terminal, because all this says is keystrokes file ready for execution. That's not very descriptive. So I'm going to add some more descriptive text that tell us what this program is capable of and lists out the different hotkeys and functions that we can use to pass in, because it's a nice reference to have. Every time I open up my hotkey program, I can just look and see, oh yeah, what is that called again? You know, Recording Studio or Google Workspace, and what's the hotkey? Because sometimes it's not always the most intuitive, even though I came up with it. I struggle with memory sometimes. It's always the lowest thing that I score on whenever I take an intelligence test is the memory section. So a descriptive text that tells us what the hotkeys do and what they are is going to be super helpful for me, at least, hopefully you as well. So let's start off by replacing this with something better. Like, hello, I am your personal keystrokes assistant. Keystrokes and hotkeys assistant. Below is a list of commands I currently support. If I can spell properly. Below is a list of commands I currently support. And then on the next line, so we'll do another print statement. Let's do e plus f plus 0. And then let's add a vertical bar. I like vertical bars. So we'll do a vertical bar, and then that's going to be the email footer. We'll just leave it at that. We know what the email footer function does. Let's paste this 2 more times. So it's actually going to be mf. That's also email footer. We have multiple hotkeys for that, if you remember from the last episode. And then here we have G and W. That's going to be Google Workspace. Now, it's actually kind of annoying that the 0 isn't first on all of these, so I'm going to fix that real quick because I want it to match the actual hotkey program later on. So we're going to do 0 plus. And then we'll get rid of the trailing plus 0. There. So now it's going to print out that I'm your personal keystrokes and hotkey assistant, and below is a list of commands I currently support. Here are the commands. And that way we have a list right there every time we run the script. Let's save it. We're going to run this so you guys can see the output. I'm going to pull this up a little bit. So there it is. Here's the text we just wrote out, talking about what the functions are and what they do, and we can press any one of those and activate them as we need. The beautiful thing about this is if we go ahead and kill this terminal, and then I'm not going to close out of this quite yet. Let me switch the screen back over to my main screen here. Display capture, properties. I want you guys to be able to see the shortcut on the desktop. So here's the keystrokes.py shortcut. That's the file we've been working on. When I open it up, that's the stuff you see. So anything you print to the terminal is going to be right there. It's going to show the text that you decide to. And I like to put my functions and hotkeys there so you know exactly what's going on in the program every time. But that's going to be it for today's tutorial. I hope that this was able to help you expand on your Keystrokes and Hotkeys assistant script so that you can start making your own functions that do all kinds of other custom things, because anything you're capable of programming, this Python script can execute it in terms of keyboard output. So the sky's the limit, really. Whatever you can come up with and figure out is going to be possible. So make some tools that will help you be more productive throughout the day, and feel free to let me know what they are. I'd be very eager to see what kinds of functions you guys would be able to come up with that could make your day that much faster. I mean, I'm always adding to my hotkeys and keystrokes program because it's really powerful, and I'm noticing things that I can automate more and more. And there's probably tons of things that I haven't thought of that would be perfect for this kind of program. So please let me know what you end up coming up with. I'd love to see it. And as always, thank you for watching.